Good afternoon. We'll call the December 3rd meeting of the Site Plan Review Technical Advisory Committee to order. The minutes are not ready, so we'll carry those over till next month. That brings us to item A under new business. The request of Jeff Naraki, Revocable Trust owner for property located at 299 Hanover Street, requesting a parking conditional use permit from section 10.1112.14 to allow 3 parking spaces where 11 are required. Said property is located on the Assessor Map 125, Lot 10, and lies within the CD4 L1 district. Go on up, Jeff.
Okay. When you put it that way, it sounds
Sounds
serious.
official? Yeah, we're official.
So there's really not much to report here. I've had 3 parking spaces since I built the building in '99. I've had 2 levels of office space. We occupy the upper level. And I'm looking to change the downstairs office space to 2 apartments because it's been for lease since April and nobody's even looking for office space. My parking requirement reduces, my parking demand reduces. Really nothing physically changes on the property. There's really not much to it.
Okay. And our role here is just to review the parking demand analysis for the conditional use permit.
And Eric updated that.
Eric updated it.
Yeah, he said the demand actually went
Went down
down to 10.
from 13 to 10.
Yeah.
And I think Eric Eby has reviewed it. Didn't have any issues. Where's Stephanie? She's not.
She got stuck at the copier.
He conveyed that to Stephanie. So any questions for the applicant? Have they resolved everything with you all with the location of the apartments on the ground floor?
Yeah, did you decide, there was a question about the moratorium on the getting the...
Well, I think that's something that would be addressed as we move forward because as it is now, I don't have to sprinkle the first floor,
Yeah.
but I would put the piping in, and then we talked about how it would have to be addressed so it doesn't artificially look like there's actual
Sure.
sprinklers.
Hide the head somehow,
Yeah, but then the option, you know, I may decide to go ahead and bring the sprinkler in, and that would be up, you know, up for discussion with
Yeah. Okay.
about the moratorium.
All right, I'll ask if there's any public comment on this application, either on Zoom or if you're on Zoom and would like to speak to this application, raise your hand. If not, we'll close the public portion. And
Do we need a motion?
I don't know that we need we usually just review those. I mean, so if we find it acceptable, we can just,
I had a question about
Sure.
the dumpster.
Yeah,
Is that just for construction? Is that a permit?
a dumpster. What dumpster?
Yeah.
Oh, you know what? You know what you're looking at? You're looking at, this was from an old application when I was renovating downstairs and got a dumpster permit. I just used the same
Okay.
picture. Sorry about the confusion. But I will need a dumpster for this project for some period of time, so I would have to go through whatever permitting I need to,
Yeah, if it's on city
Encumbrance.
property, it'd be an encumbrance
Yeah.
permit.
yeah, that's what I did before.
Okay.
Yep.
okay.
Well, I'll make a motion. We don't have to make a motion, but I can, right?
Sure.
We can make a motion.
Yeah, we can.
that It's acceptable.
yeah, that the parking demand analysis.
Parking demand
is-
analysis is acceptable.
Second, third.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? No. Motion carries. Thank you.
Terrific.
Thank you.
Boy, I wish they were all this easy.
So do we. So do we.
They're not.
All right.
One Market.
Next up.
Got them?
I'll read it while you're getting. The request of One Market Square LLC owner for property located at 1 Congress Street, 21 Congress Street, requesting a parking conditional use permit from section 10.1112.14, about 21 parking spaces where 53 are required. Site plan approval to merge the lots of 1 Congress and 15 Congress for a mixed-use development with associated site improvements. Property is located on Assessment Map 117, Lot 14, and Lot 12, and lies within the CD4, CD5 Historic and Downtown Overlay Districts. Welcome.
Welcome. You went really fast with Naraki.
We did.
Same with us?
We'll see.
Yeah, see. John, why don't you start?
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm the Advisory Committee, John Shagnon from Healy Ward, representing 1 Congress Street LLC for the 1 Congress Street, 15 Congress Street site redevelopment project. We did come to a workshop and had some discussions that led to the plans that we have before you. The plan that's now on the board is the existing conditions plan, showing the existing J.J. Newbury building, which goes pretty much property line to property line, except for the alley coming off of Fleet Street. The Congress building, which connects to that building, and then there is an existing surface parking area to the rear. The next slide should be a demolition of orthophoto plan that shows just a bird's eye view. Next slide is a demolition plan showing portions of the 1 Congress building that will be removed. And then the next plan is a zoning compliance plan showing the parking requirements, the parking that has been provided. The property is in 2 zones, so there are 2 zoning tables or zoning references on the bottom right. There's the height references on the top right, and other impervious surface calculations. It should be noted that the project will decrease the impervious surface. The next slide is the project site plan, and the plan is to construct an addition to 1 Congress that was previously approved. However, this version, since the acquisition of J.J. Newbury, will be bringing that building to a party wall with the J.J. Newbury building. The plan shows treatments of Haven Court and Ladd Street. Surface treatments, the idea there is, as was done on Chestnut Street, to lower the curbs, make it a flat street grade with differential paving treatments to identify the travel lane and the sidewalk area. The rest of the plan set has grading, drainage, utilities, lighting. There's a lighting plan. There are plan and profile sheets, floor plans, renderings, and details. There's also the landscape section showing the landscape improvements. In the submitted material, there's also a drainage analysis, which has been prepared to show stormwater management. There's been a traffic memorandum that was performed by GPI to address traffic, and there's only a slight increase in Saturday traffic proposed by the project. The project plans include a property line adjustment, and other information is in the packet, including the lighting fixtures. We received comments from the Technical Advisory Committee, and I have a handout, if it's appropriate, unless you want to do questions first. We can go over the written comments. So if it's appropriate, I'll...
Yeah, let's wait to the comments.
So first comment was, please address and comply with conditional use permit criteria as found in section 10.5A 4343. So at this point, the response, the applicant will not proceed with the conditional use permit under section 10.5A 4343, and will keep the building separate. We believe Article 3 of the zoning ordinances, which I've attached, allows a lawful non-conforming building to remain. So map 117, lot 12, which is the J.J. Newbury, conforms with the zoning ordinances except for open space and building footprint. And that will not change if we keep the lots separate. If we did merge the lots, that lot actually then becomes conforming, the combined lot becomes conforming regarding open space. And the J.J. Newbury, we would submit, remains a lawful non-conforming building regarding building footprint.
Yeah, and I also wanted to add to it that this building footprint item, so we're going forward as two separate buildings so we can move forward. Our desire is to merge and combine these lots. In the zoning ordinances, the city clearly has a problem because your definition of building footprint in the back is written super clear, super easy to follow, which says that basically almost all your streets downtown are considered one building footprint because it has lot line in there. So it's important for the public record, because we'll be asking the planning board to rule on this. Your building footprint definition by the city of Portsmouth is the total area at or above 18 inches. We all get that. In an elevation as measured from the outside walls. We all get that. At the grade plane, we all understand that. Of a detached building, we all understand what a detached building is, comma, or of two or more buildings separated by only firewalls, common walls, or property lines. So, Pleasant Street downtown, State Street downtown, Market Street downtown, this whole building are all attached by property lines. They're all one building footprint. You don't have a building footprint definition downtown. So we say that existing buildings that are lawful non-conforming are fine. You should allow it to merge and combine, or at least ignore it the way the city has ignored it on every building that's been renovated downtown that is considered one maximum building footprint because they're all attached. So that's our thing we're going to ask the planning board for. Should the planning director, read that and see that definition on building footprint is really flawed for downtown Portsmouth, it's probably in no other zone. It's downtown that's the problem with that definition. We believe that it's in the spirit to allow J.J. Newbury. I mean, right now, we're already attached to my other parcel by that definition. I'm attached through J.J. Newbury to the front building where the bagel place is, to my building on 1 Congress. It's all one building. Those are all lot lines and all party walls. So I'm already attached to map 12, lot 14. Let me just do it. Let me combine those two lots and be one building. It's the spirit of the zoning ordinances. So I don't know if anybody has been aware of that faulty definition on trying to define building footprint and maximum building footprint downtown. If this is new information to you, then I just ask you to take a look at that after, and should you agree, I would respectfully ask you to support the planning board allowing these to be merged and combined. If you don't, we'll ask the planning board, because as you know, they're the ultimate decision-making of the zoning ordinance. But we're going forward as separate buildings, because what I don't want to do is get caught in having to figure something out and be held up.
So this time you're not going to do the lot merger?
We would go with the lot merger.
Okay.
If TAC said, we agree with you, you're a lawful non-conforming building, You're allowed to voluntarily merge those lots in the state of New Hampshire. And we agree, by our definition, we can't make you adhere to a building footprint that nobody else has adhered to in the downtown. I shouldn't say nobody, but the vast majority of buildings are attached. If you don't, then I would leave it to the planning board on, do I need to have them separate lots and have a firewall? Because the buildings are big enough. I can have stairwells and elevators in both buildings. It doesn't, I can do it. It's just a nicer, better design for co-living and apartments to have a common lobby and common cores, and it's more efficient. It's just a better design. So I desire them to be merged and combined. I just don't know how TAC would like to proceed with that issue. So I guess I'll leave it to TAC.
If I may add just one point, one difference in a merged lot or not. If we have a property line there, that party wall, you can't cross it. There's no doors, windows, penetrations. So what we're hoping to do is, if it were one lot, we have a main entrance on High Street for folks coming down Commercial Alley, down Ladd Street. They would go into the main building on High Street, and we could create an interior pedestrian way all the way to Fleet Street through these connected buildings. That will never happen if we cannot merge the lots.
Yeah, that's a good point, because a lot of the space on Congress Street, a lot of that retail space is very deep. It's rectangular and very deep, which really allows it awesome in the back end of it to connect it through corridors for means of egress and bathrooms and a better design on core facilities. We really desire that.
Well, part of the problem is this isn't really a work session, and we have something before us, so I guess we're just trying to figure out how to handle that. What you've submitted, and then you submitted the second version. So you want to go with this revision
So
submission?
it's just a written comment here about reacting to what what the staff comment was. What Mark is saying, we want to go forward with the plans the way they are, yes, and seek to get some
Planning board.
additional resolution to the question.
Yeah, I mean, we want to go forward. We're willing to, we can comply with them two separate buildings if the city determines that we violate the building footprint. So all we're asking is to let us, go forward and let the planning board decide, are they two separate buildings? Or can we merge and combine them?
Yeah.
Doesn't change our HDC approval, doesn't change the outside of our building is what it is. Like I said, if anything, you move closer to the ordinances because J.J. Newberry does not meet open space.
Right.
It's 3.5% and 5% is required, and once we combine it with all our other holdings, we're way over. I think we're way over 10%. And the building footprint's the building footprint. It's.
Let's continue to the comments.
Okay.
We'll come-
Okay,
We can
yep.
come back to this
And we
one.
can talk, we can
Yep.
go back and talk to
Yep.
that about if there's a separate
And then-
table or plan that we need to insert for the next step. Right?
I'd say the other thing too is if you have one building, then you may be sharing utilities and, not as much concerned of separating everything. You could have one stairwell versus two. You can't have openings in two separate buildings, so there's a pretty big change with respect to construction cost and methods and design, one building versus two.
Yes,
It's extremely considerable. And so it seems like you would want to pursue a merger,
We always did.
regardless of whether or not it's a little harder or yeah.
We always did. The best design of these buildings is to merge and combine them. But I have to work within your zoning ordinances and what you determine and what the planning board determines, and then I'll just take what appropriate action each step along the way. If the planning board says no, then, I'll probably ask the BOA to make a determination of how do you want to deal with this. And then if they say no, then I'll decide then if I want to do anything. But I think the first step is just, I think the city has enough to work with if you want the path to allowing these lots to be merged and combined under Article 3 and under not having a definition or building footprint.
Well, there's a problematic definition for building footprint. I acknowledge that.
Right, I mean, it's so problematic that it throws it out. I mean,
Yeah, there should be,
Everything
it
downtown's
should say or not
It'd say or
separated by,
it should not have the word
Firewalls.
prop,
It's
if your
missing, right.
intent
Or not, I think
was,
it was missing.
if your intent was to not go past property lines should never have been in that definition.
Well, or it could have said or not, and then property lines and firewalls would be excluded.
And you still have to talk about a lawful non-conforming building, because that's even flawed. Under Article 3, you're not allowed to reconstruct any of these buildings without, and we're reconstructing all these buildings. And so you're not protected by a lawful non-conforming on reconstruction. And that's crystal clear, too, on Article 3. Which is the non-conforming lots and buildings and structures. When you read those sections, you got the word reconstruction in there. And as soon as you put the word reconstruction in there, you deal with reconstruction after fire in another area. So that's not talking about like damage or fire.
Well, you can reconstruct it even as it stands, according to the definition, as long as you're not enlarging the overall floor space or the height. So you can reconstruct a legal non-conforming structure, 10.322. A building must apply for, notwithstanding the preceding paragraphs, following modifications may enlarge or expand, providing
No.
it's the minimum necessary to comply with the applicable code.
Yeah, Chauncey, you got to first get to 10.321, the first part. A lawful non-conforming building or structure may continue and be maintained and repaired. Can only maintain and repair it, but may not be extended, reconstructed, or enlarged unless such extension, reconstruction, or enlargement conforms to all regulations of the district in which it is located. So again, you put in another word there. When you put in reconstruction, and you only have in the first sentence repair and maintenance, basically all these full renovations we're doing of buildings downtown lose their lawful non-conforming building by your definition.
Is reconstruction?
But I think in
fine?
reconstruction,
Yes,
is
it's-
from the ground up. is
No,
what
but
it was intended.
but it's not defined in your zoning ordinance, and if you go to the Webster Dictionary and the way this is written in here, this can only be interpreted in the sentence as these full renovations we're doing of these buildings. Because you say in the first sentence, may be maintained or repaired, then you go in and say, anything beyond maintained and repaired,
You're
enlarged.
maintaining the foot, well, maybe the footprint's not the
Well,
right word, but
but
you're
it also-
maintaining the building.
It does say, though, unless reconstruction or enlargement conforms to all the regulations of the district in which it's located. So
Correct.
it does start off to say that unless you're only maintaining or repairing, you can't extend it or reconstruct it or enlarge it unless such extension, reconstruction, or enlargement conforms to all the regulations of the district in which it's located. So you can do that. You can
That's
make
the-
that happen.
Not downtown.
That's what we've been doing, though.
Not downtown. These buildings, Shanti, are attached building to building. You don't have
No,
setbacks.
I'm saying that the
you don't have-
language does support an interior renovation as long as you're conforming with the rest of the regulations
You
of the
can't,
district.
though. Because the districts downtown, CD4 and CD5, you have setbacks from lot lines, you have lot coverage, you have all these things that the vast majority of buildings do not meet. And as soon as you reconstruct, you have to meet all the regulations in that district. And we don't meet
I would
those.
argue, though, that your building as a whole, the way that I would apply it, doesn't need to all of a sudden magically meet everything, because you can't. But
It's
the
the
work that you're
expansion.
doing would need to meet,
Yep.
so in other words, there's exceptions for egress, like 111 State Street, pretty massive renovation for the elevator and the stairwell, which we've said that is allowed because of egress, so there are some.
That fell
I agree.
into a different part here, which allows us to do that.
Sure.
And actually, you could even read that with combining J.J. Newberry to even be the same thing. If I'm saying for core and elevator and stair, you could say, we agree with them on the means of egress and combining these, and you could, as the building inspector under 10.323, agree that they could be combined.
I think the definition, the way we've applied it, is for reconstruction not being a tear down is not really considered reconstruction. Not starting from the ground up or a substantial, tear down. That's how we've applied it. I understand what you're saying.
But see,
the expansion is where the problem comes in. Expanding the footprint, expanding the height, those things make the building different.
but I got to stop you there. 10.322 addresses what you just said. That's not in 10.321. 10.322 discusses damaged or destroyed, this reconstructing. 10
From the ground up.
That's what you were talking about. That is addressed in 10.322. 10.321, though, is the one that is written where that you can't be doing these full renovations of buildings downtown and claim a lawful non-conforming building. And the most of the downtown, because they're attached, built on lot lines, don't have side setbacks, you'll find that a great percentage of the downtown doesn't meet your zoning ordinances if it had to.
The building doesn't need to, but the reconstruction certainly does. But to your point, if you needed to reconstruct an exterior wall that was non-conforming, how are you going to meet it? You may not be able to.
It's just that 10.321 is written that reconstruction is inside, because it only exempts repair and maintenance. That's all it does. And anything else in your definition here is considered, you don't keep your lawful non-conforming. So you should be looking at every building that's attached, that the Rusty Hammer that goes to renovation, the Piscataqua Savings Banks, my buildings, the bank there on State Street. You should be looking at all of those. Okay, you're not repairing, you're not maintaining. Those are the only two things we can do. So what you're doing has to be in the next sentence. And that all says that you lose your lawful non-conforming. I mean, the downtown.
Well, that's not, I understand your logical sequence, but that's not how the ordinance is intended and not how it's been applied. In terms of the expansion, we do apply it that way. In terms of the height, we do apply it that way. But in terms of, if someone's not tearing down a house, they can rebuild a non-conforming within the walls, some level of new windows, new roof, as long as it's the same structure size. That non-conforming can stay, because essentially that's a repair or a renovation.
So there
So
you.
if you keep the lot separate, you can build to a party wall, correct?
Yeah.
So you can just do the reconstruction and, you can do the construction of the addition to 1 Congress. That footprint doesn't exceed 30,000.
Yeah, 1 Congress is fine. One
And
Congress is
then-
never a problem.
After that construction is over, why could you not merge the lots?
Because planning is saying that the total footprint, building footprint, then is 36,000 feet, and only 20,000 is allowed in CD5. And what I'm
But
saying,
under the definition,
there's
already 30,000.
already
there.
things attached to the whole
So
block.
you have 2 non-conforming.
Was the intent of an individual owner, or in other words, an individual parcel? In other words, because we all know that you've got building upon building upon building that are
Yeah.
connected, and they
Yeah.
meet the definition of the same footprint But the intent is what?
Question.
Right. That's the thing. And when you say like precedent, like you say in the 10.321,
Well, on the
this is
footprint,
how
it's
we,
different.
not precedent, this is how we've been interpreting it, then I just want
On
you.
the reconstruction, not on the footprint.
On the reconstruction, then I just want the city to interpret it the same way on maximum building footprint, which is basically, we have not been holding maximum building footprint accountable for all the applications that come in. You cannot like your definition, you could say it was flawed, but nevertheless, it is a crystal clear definition. And so I'm just asking the city to do what you've done on all these other buildings that, like mine on 111 State Street, which is attached to everything on Sheep Street. That's one building footprint.
But that doesn't exceed, what did you say, 35,000?
Well, in that place, CD4, it's 15,000 feet, and sure, they
that's
very
what I-
quickly get up to that when you have a whole block attached.
Yeah, I haven't looked at, any of that on the land use side of things. It really hasn't affected me. But yeah,
Again, we think J.J. Newberry is a lawful non-conforming building. Left is a separate lot. It's a lawful non-conforming building combined with the other lot. So anyhow, sorry to take so much time, but the reality is it's the zoning ordinances, and we didn't create them. So it's the zoning ordinances language that has taken the time, really, not me, Mark McNabb. So, John, you want to continue with that?
Sure. Just continuing
Yeah.
with that.
Comments?
The next comment was the lot merger application will be required. So, again, I responded, the applicant will not merge the lots, so to make this, to keep this plan for the expansion moving, where one Congress is going to build to a common party wall, then the merger would happen later, and the merger design would need to be revised if the city comes to a conclusion that we can't do a two-step, build the building, then merge. So the firewall would separate, and it would require additional stairs inside the J.J. Newberry building, but no exterior modifications. So the HDC approval would be able to stay in place in its interior lines and building elements.
I'm not sure that additional stair wouldn't be required even if you did merge lots.
Oh, yeah, we don't disagree. You may need an additional stair. Correct. Yeah,
Additional from what's on these plans.
yeah, I don't disagree, Patrick. Yeah.
Based on length of travel and stuff.
Dead end corridor.
Yeah, exactly. So time frame wise, I think everyone's asked me the question a lot. So this is a 4-year project. So just so everybody kind of knows what we're doing, is David knew when we met Monday with Eversource and went over everything for utilities. We would like to start the One Congress, the building in the parking lot, the one that was already approved, but now attaching to J.J. Newberry this June. That's a 2-year schedule. Simultaneously with that One Congress, that building in the parking lot, nothing to do yet with J.J. Newberry, we would take Haven Court down to the handicap grade that we want to do it. And we would temporarily pave all of Haven Court, all the way to Fleet Street. So it can be used for lay down, construction, and allow 2 years for all the utility companies for us to run conduits, to rip it up, run a conduit, temporarily repave it again, and do all our connections that these utilities really is being accommodative, because none of these is really needed or triggered for J.J. Newberry. It's just that Eversource needs and wants to complete the primary loop from Fleet Street to the parking garage. So it's important for everybody here to know, these aren't utilities for me to build my buildings. One Market, the building in the parking lot, is getting its power from the transformer at the High Hanover garage. I'm all set. I don't need Fleet Street. I don't need that end. My water, my sewer, all that's coming from High and Ladd Street. So for One Congress, our utilities all come from there. This pass-through on Haven Court is high-pressure gas would love to jump through and bring high pressure to High Street, which is not there right now. So we can make that happen. Eversource wants to complete the primary loop and clean up a whole bunch of dysfunctional stuff they have. They got a bunch of problems. We can give them the land for transformers. We can allow the conduits to go through. So this is kind of a cooperative effort between Eversource, the city of Portsmouth, and me. Not for my building. That's where it's important to understand. After 2 years, so this would be June of 2027, would be the first available time we would consider opening up J.J. Newberry. We can't put that whole block into construction and do all the J.J. Newberry in one Congress, in one fall swoop. It would demobilize the downtown. We'd lose all our laydown space. So we have to phase it this way. So J.J. Newberry is not going to be touched for 2 years. I'm hoping in those 2 years to come back with a change of use. I'm hoping the planning board will pass co-living. Right now, if they don't, though, we can only give a plan on what's zoning compliant, which is apartments. But our intent is we wouldn't be doing any of that for at least 2 years. That would start then almost simultaneously with the city of Portsmouth in Fleet Street. So we would do those renovations to J.J. Newberry, and Fleet Street would coordinate all that and keep those schedules so that neither one of them interrupts, or the city has to do stuff and I'm done and they have to rip up good stuff I've done. That's how we're coordinating it all. So J.J. Newberry inside, we know the building's big enough. Right now, as we're speaking, we have a 3-year lease in place for office. I can't even legally right now change those change of uses on the upper floors for 3 years. So, but we want to tell the planning board and everybody what our plan is, what our game plan is, and we want co-living. And so we had to come out and say, we talked up front, should we just leave J.J. Newberry alone? We just say, all right, we'll leave it alone. We'll come back to it in 2 years. But then we would have missed the opportunity to coordinate it with the city and Fleet Street. We would have missed the opportunity to get co-living hopefully passed. So it's important for TAC to know that we are so far away from construction documents inside J.J. Newberry on how many entrances, how many common path of travel. That's $1 million of architecture and engineering 2 years down the road before we're ready to say, hey, here's our J.J. Newberry plan. But we know J.J. Newberry's big enough, and we have entrances on Congress Street, on Fleet Street, on Haven Court. We know we absolutely unequivocally can get our means of egress and met. We're far away from doing that, though.
So, what are we, if you aren't trying to build J.J. Newberry, why do you want to proceed right now with this? Why don't we take a look at this zoning, adjust it if we can, as necessary, and then come back when you're ready with your project?
Well, because we have an important approval.
Or move forward with the offices, so you won't need to go for the conditional use permit the way it is.
The most important thing, though, but see, we'd rather disclose it all up front and move forward with what we plan to do. Right now, we would plan to, unless zoning changes, which we never hold our breath on that, is just have a compliant per your zoning ordinances project. And we value the HDC approval on the exterior. I spent about $250,000 to get that between all the professionals, and I want that. I want that approved. I want that through the site plan. I want that through the site plan on Haven Court, because it's disruption of Haven Court, which site plan review. So J.J. Newberry needs to at least go through for all of Haven Court, all utilities, and everything on the exterior I plan to do to J.J. Newberry. Interior on J.J. Newberry, I could almost care less.
Right, so you have the office now, you wouldn't need the parking CUP.
But combining and merging the buildings, I would want to do, which again is why I'm doing it as one project, because that doesn't change if I wait for co-living or not. I want to merge and combine these buildings. So I think in the spirit of balancing all of the what should I do, how should I disclose it or not, I think we've picked the right path, which is what we're after. We're after a merged and combined lot, and we're after co-living in J.J. Newberry. That's what we're after.
But that's not what you're seeking today.
Today, what we're seeking are the apartments that are compliant to your zoning ordinances, the 23 apartments, which require a CUP for parking, and that's all we can go on. See, there's a lot of moving parts. It's not only construction, but appraisals and financing lead this stuff by years. So you kind of got to map stuff out, and there's a whole system. I mean, just think of your own stuff. If you're doing a police station or anything else, there's all this work that happens way before reality. So we really would like to get approval for what we've presented here, which is compliant to zoning. If we have them separate buildings, they're compliant to zoning. If you find otherwise the way we do, then merging and combining would be compliant as well. So I think it makes sense for us to continue the way we're going. We really would like to get something this approved, which zoning allows us.
It speaks to the, also, I think, if I can, it speaks to the table set for some of the impetus to allow co-living. Because of the size of this building, it's not, and was never set up to be a residential building. And as I think explained in some of the material, the next best thing that is allowed are micro units, but you can't do micro units because of the size and shape. So having the approved by right current zoning number of dwelling units helps to explain why the co-living would be appropriate for the downtown.
Yeah, we could never do anything even remotely workforce on JJ Newberry without co-living. These apartments are more like 2,500 square feet to comply with zoning. If we did micro, more than 50% of the units would have no windows. So, I mean, we can't do micro apartments because of the depth of the building. So John accurately said, the only thing we can do on JJ Newberry for housing on the upper floors is very large apartments. They'll be the most expensive apartments in the city of Portsmouth because of their size. If we do co-living, that's a whole different thing. That's what we're after. Then that comes down to the price, what we're looking to do, which is something for workers and individuals. But we can't get there without a zoning change. We would still do that, though, because the upper floors don't have a long-term use for office. Office has really changed dramatically. So we clearly would go forward with this plan, with the large apartments on the top of JJ Newberry, the top 2 floors, without a co-living zone. And there's no way we could do micro apartments up there. We just couldn't. We don't have the windows. We don't have the. So if we didn't have that narrative, then planning and the planning board and tech wouldn't understand, would lose that opportunity to explain all that. People would just think you could do micro apartments. So we'd prefer to proceed with, how we've laid it out and encourage the planning board and the planning department to allow co-living and encourage everybody to look at it to allow us to merge and combine the lots.
But understand that takes time.
That takes time.
So, shall we move on,
Yes.
Peter?
Yes, please.
Okay. Please describe how the roof appurtenance stairwell design has changed. And we'll let Tracy read that response. Or
Sure.
she could probably do it extemporaneously, but.
So there was and still is a stair overrun on the One Congress building along Haven Court. We just slid it to the west, 2 bays, and a little bit further back away from Haven. And there's a octagon glass penthouse attached to it. And there's a second smaller stair overrun on 15 Congress on the Newberry's side, which is set way back from any public way. You can't really see it unless you're a bird. So those are the 2 stair overrun there. That's a perfect view right there.
This one.
Yep. So that's the new one we're constructing for egress on the Newberry's building. That one on the left, that used to be a little bit further back where all the solar panels are. So we slid it along. It's touching that party wall between the 2 buildings now. And that would serve as a main entrance to at least the J.J. Newberry building, if not both, if lots are combined.
Because the building got to the boundary, now you can move it
Yeah.
over a bit.
Yeah, it's just touching the firewall. It's just touching the lot line part of
So,
it.
I guess one of the questions was, is this roof new? Or is this how it's going to be?
Yes,
Like that?
Yeah, and that's what the
And-
HDC approved.
Yeah.
right,
That's what the HGC approved, just like that?
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah. This whole plan you're looking at, the HDC approved.
And again, you can't really see it. This is a 2D.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that stairwell overrun is way behind where that street front is.
Yep.
Like that.
Will you still be meeting the requirement that 50% of your egress discharge directly outside in the 1 Congress Street with this design?
Yes.
Dumping into lobbies of both.
Depending how we do the fire separation of that stairwell lobby, that whole thing would be the stairwell. So at the first floor, you wouldn't be passing through a separate lobby. That would be the stairwell you open the door into.
So I'm assuming you're talking one that goes on to Haven Court?
Yeah. So that would have to be direct discharge, because the other one is through a lobby
Right.
to High Street.
Did we answer the proof of pertinence question? Okay. The next one is applicant must show evidence of legal right to install transformer and related infrastructure on map 117, lot 16. And just a correction, it's map 117, lot 8. And I've attached the purchase and sale authorization letter that gives Mark the right to make this application. And also, we recently completed a property survey of map 117, lot 8, AKA the Gillies property. And so 117, 16 is the City of Portsmouth parking garage. I don't know if there's another connection that somebody was thinking about, or another transformer location. If not, I hope that answers that question.
Did that answer your question?
It was Trevor's question, so.
And I think everybody understands what happened with the Gillies acquisition. It allowed us to make Haven Court wider, which was what we were after. That was really my decision to buy it, is I want to see it 17 feet wide the whole way. And then that allows line crews to come through. It allows pedestrians to have a regular width. It's really, it allows the transformer to get out of the way and behind Gillies and towards the parking garage and back space that's not in the middle of Haven Court. So it was really quite substantial what it did to improving Haven Court and making utilities work.
So the last 3 comments, I'll just read through our responses that we agree that these can be living conditions of approval. So one is that this review is not complete regarding off-site improvements. Later review and approval of all off-site areas, including but not limited to Ladd Street, High Street, and Haven Court land improvements, will be required in a separate reviewing action. The city makes no guarantee on the timeline that the proposed Fleet Street utility improvements will be constructed. The applicant must therefore show the existing utilities in Fleet Street and how any proposed work will be incorporated into the existing Fleet Street pipe network. A separate sheet should be provided showing the proposed Fleet Street improvement design and how any new improvements on Haven Court or the Newbury building will eventually interface. And proposed elevation changes to Haven Court may affect the foundation walls, et cetera, of the Hanover Municipal Parking Garage. 30-party review of structures and foundations will be required by the city. And that rounds out the comments. Is there any other questions about any of the application materials that have been submitted that we can answer?
Doesn't look like it. Any other comments? Let me just see if there are any public comments. Anyone wishing to make a comment? If you're on Zoom, raise your hand, or in person. All right, seeing none, close that portion. Further discussion?
Yes,
Matt? Yeah, Pat?
I do have a question on the egress on the second floor. It looks like the residential has a single exit, and it's the one that would dump on High Street.
Nothing has a single exit.
The other exit looks like it's in the office space. On page PBN A2. There you go.
You're in JJ Newberry?
No.
Oh, this one right there.
Yeah.
Yeah, you don't, that doesn't have the layout of the residential that's on this application, right, Tracy? Or
When we submitted it, this is the plan, and yeah, that has office on level 2. Let's see, there is a door missing. That stairway on this plan would serve the office. So the stairway on Haven Court would serve the office space, as well as the stairway on High Street. And there should be a door shown. Oh, there's a door
There's a
shown.
door
It's just
here.
on-
Yeah, no, I'm wondering
But this one,
the second exit for the residential.
we're representing that
Oh.
the actual final floor plan will have a hallway that connects. It just doesn't have a layout yet. There'll be two means of egress for,
Over here. Well,
Is there residential? That's the JJ Newbury side?
no, you're not.
One Congress?
This,
One Congress.
this, gotcha.
So there is an aspect of R2 that allows a single exit if it's less than 4 units, and
Right, but it has
But I
to
don't want-
discharge directly outside, which that one doesn't.
Oh, I see.
And I don't want a single exit. We've already, Tracy, we've already gone over this. We're connecting the hallway to that other stairwell. So you just don't have the
Yep.
plan there that shows that. You certainly can
But
pass
both
it.
exits will serve.
Yes,
The residential.
100% of the floor. So if you want to add that as a condition, that of this building you're looking at, the second, third, and fourth floors all have two means of egress.
Yeah, I think the upper floors show that.
Yeah, just-
the second floor shows different.
Good catch. It didn't, we're not trying to get away with anything on that. You know. And as you certainly know, we wouldn't get by IBC and International Fire Code, so it's not.
You already said that you've got ample ways of accommodating all of the required egress, so that's, as a courtesy, calling it out, but eventually,
You hesitate.
We wouldn't get a permit.
Right.
Exactly, right. Right, exactly. Because none of this circumvents IBC or IFC.
So there's a lot of different things in your application that I'm just not clear what you're proceeding with, because it talks about co-living in here, but then the plans don't show co-living.
We don't have a co-living zone.
Right, no, I understand that, but I'm just trying to, it's going to be very confusing for the planning board to review this.
I don't think it is at all. We're coming forward right now with 2 separate buildings with apartments that comply with your zoning ordinance on JJ Newberry. And we have to have the confusing narrative in it because we want to keep alive the conversation of co-living to encourage it to get passed. So there's no way to not be confusing, but it's not confusing. You don't have co-living in your zoning ordinances.
I understand that.
So we did,
But you're,
Well, why is it
talked
confusing?
about it,
Talked
and
about it.
then we did say that the path to co-living can only occur with the zoning change. The design presented is in conformance with the permitted residential uses. And I think,
Correct.
I don't know that the planning board would be confused, because we did the conceptual review with.
I know they know about the co-living and they're working on the zoning for it, but
Yeah.
I'm just, if you're not going to do it, and you can't do it, really, you're going to have to come back for that then.
Cover letter's clear.
2 years.
Yeah. Cover letter's clear, though, what we're doing. We're proceeding with zoning compliant apartments. And unless the city passes co-living,
Conditional use for the parking.
conditional use for the parking. You got it.
And the planning board can be clear to say they're not approving co-living, right?
They'll have to.
Exactly right. It's just,
They wouldn't want to, that's maybe a hang-up, because they don't.
it's not our application, though. We're not,
Think,
they're not even,
think that.
yeah, it's not even in front of them.
And during the work sessions that we've had with the planning board on the co-living matter, it's been disclosed that we are proceeding with this application with the apartments as permitted per the present zoning, while simultaneously proceeding to try to advance the whole co-living. So they're well aware.
I think the bigger question now is our interpretation of the definition of building footprint.
Right. But again, we can comply either way. So if TAC gives a recommendation to either way, then the planning board gets to determine. So if TAC votes and says that you don't agree to that interpretation, ultimately the planning board would decide. Or if it doesn't stop us, because we can go either way, 2 buildings or 1 building. We just prefer 1 building.
Future merger. Applicable, as you said, in 111 state now.
111 was different, though. Shanti and Patrick were great in agreeing that there was no way to get code complying in 111 without that provision of zoning.
Yeah, it's much more limited in your options.
It's very
due to
limited.
the size of the building. This is a whole different.
JJ Newberry's big enough that,
I don't see how we can interpret it. I don't see how we can interpret it other than what the ordinance says. While I agree, it's not written well, and it should probably have a except for, it doesn't say that. So it's something the planning board's going to have to wrestle with.
yeah, I think they should. There isn't, there's an issue of not written well, and then there's an issue of it's written very well. It's just not saying what you want it to say. So building footprint
Or what they
was
intended it to
written
say.
very
Yeah.
well
Yeah.
for clarity in it, but unfortunately, it's just written that most of the downtown is 1 building, at least along every street.
Yeah, we'll talk to them.
Excuse me.
Yeah, so whether we address it and change the definition, or, planning board approves it the way it is, I don't feel like, personally, I can recommend it the way it's written, because we got to follow our ordinance.
You got what?
Because we need to follow our ordinance as it's written, and like you said, it's pretty clear how it's written.
Well, it's clear that you don't define
Ballpark
building
footprint.
footprint, so you can't say that it's non-compliant and over the maximum building footprint. But I get, if TAC, I respect, if you if you want to say that they're going forward with two separate buildings, and you're not recommending that they can be combined and merged, I respect that. We will ask the planning board to interpret that, but that's all I can do.
I mean, I don't see how. Yeah, I mean, it's the ordinance in front of us.
But you'd recommend going to the planning board as two separate buildings?
Right, unless they get a CUP for building footprint.
Or unless the planning board
Or unless-
determines that this,
Has a different
they can
interpretation.
pass it,
There's a different interpretation.
different interpretation.
Yeah.
Section, Article 3.
Right.
And they can clearly do that.
On the spot, because this is an advisory committee.
That's
so,
correct.
You know, they can do whatever they want.
Yes, they
right?
can. Yes, they can. Yes, they can. This is a tough call for them because this isn't one that's, lots of times it's supported with crystal clear.
Right.
This is just, but that position won't change an hour from now, 10 hours from now, where we are right now, which is we want to move a project forward. There's two separate buildings with the CUP for parking, and we'll have the request to the planning board to read Article 3 and building footprint to allow us to merge and combine. And they'll either say, yep, you can merge and combine them, great, or they'll say no, and we're just two buildings. Don't know what the BOA will say, but that's a whole separate.
So what are we waiting on?
Well, if anyone, is there further discussion or any motion?
And then on the parking CUP, did we get anything back from Eric? Anybody? No?
You talked to Eric about Hanover, but did he say
Just
anything about,
Hanover.
he didn't say anything about,
I didn't hear anything from him about this one. Did you guys? No.
Is there a sample motion that would make sense?
recommending approval going forward as two separate buildings, unless the planning board has a different interpretation or the applicant seeks his conditional use permit for building footprint.
So moved.
Real quick. We'll need a SEMA fee, right?
Yeah, that's already part of the original approval.
Okay, for One Congress.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Okay.
and this is combining to that.
And third party engineer.
Yeah. And
Is that we'll need?
there
We agreed to that as well.
That would
there
be
are
the-
other
One Congress.
conditions or comments that can carry over as conditions.
Okay.
5, 6, and 7.
Yeah, living conditions.
Any other conditions, discussion? All in favor? Aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, thanks.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Start.
So this would be a end of this month? January?
January planning
You
board.
submitted for December, right? Or what? Or you haven't submitted this?
You asked me to stay that because the department was looking at
Right,
this
right.
issue.
So-
So we could put it in tomorrow, but,
Well, the deadline was last week,
right,
and we got a really big agenda December
okay.
already.
That'll be January.
Yeah, be easier.
I'll let him know.
Yeah, thanks.
Yep. Thank you.
All right. Item C, request of Durgan Square LLC owner for property located at 1600 Woodbury Avenue, requesting amended site plan approval for the addition of EV charging stations in existing parking lot with associated equipment and transformer. Property is Assessor Map 238, Lot 16, and lies within the G1 corridor. And I think we have a applicant who's in Kansas.
Is he remote?
Yeah.
Good afternoon.
Hello, welcome. Go ahead.
Yeah, this is Dallas Cullen, with Home Site Consultants, on behalf of AGI, Iona, and the landlord for this property.
Can you see my screen?
Yes, sir, I can.
Okay. All right, so if you want to walk us through your plan?
Yeah, so in the corner of this existing parking lot facility, we're looking to acquire permissions to provide EV charging to the city, specifically from Iona. The location is 5 to 6 chargers. Working with the local utility company who has already supported our requirements for power in this area and has given us a preliminary design as they're going through the final stages. As well as, ensuring that we're, working with this parcel and its requirements, for, water retention, stormwater management, things of that nature, and only, working on the impervious portions of this asphalt. The location on this track 1 map that's being shown is to your right, in the corner right off of Durgan Lane. Right north of that restricted area. It's right there. And then the power is coming off on the opposite side of the street of Durgan Lane. There's a few survey sheets in here. If we continue to go down, and there's the proposed site plan that we are looking for one. And this is just showing, areas to be, worked on, the improvements, the parking stall counts, their locations, the locations of the utility supporting infrastructure across from it, protected by bollards, per landlord requirements, and just meeting, on-site conditions.
All right, thank you. Any questions for the applicant? All right, don't seem to be any questions. Any?
Hold on a second.
Go ahead.
I didn't see something. Can you get that off the screen so I can see? Thanks. Proposed power. I didn't realize that. The system.
Is that going to impact the
Yeah,
multi-use
they're going to need a
path?
license for that pole. They're going to need a license for that power line that they're crossing the city street with. And that's allowed without licenses from the city council.
City council license? Is there an application process, or they just gotta put a letter
Through the city clerk.
to the city clerk?
Mm-hmm.
Do you hear that, Dallas?
Yes, and we're currently working with the utility company. They may be pulling in that loan, but either way, we work with, any requirements that you guys need.
So-
or we need that.
So it's, the utility company is required for sure, but the city also requires a license over the street and to attach to the pole?
Eversource will need a license for the pole, and is Eversource going to own that transformer, or is that owned by the parcel?
There might be a clarification needed on the drawing. So along the north right-of-way line of Durgan is an overhead line, and they're going to be placing another utility pole within that space, and then we're going to be going underground.
Yep.
Durgan Lane.
Understand that.
And then popping up into the utility-owned transformer.
So I would say that the Eversource is going to need a license for the pole, and I would say that you will need a license for the conduit that you're planning on going across Durgan Lane with, because it looks like it's going to be a private transformer, not something that Eversource is going to use for other users. So there'll be two licenses, one for you, one for Eversource, and then the bonding for crossing the road. There's impact fees because the road just got paved, so.
Okay, understood.
Dave, we were going to recommend that they ask for a waiver from the site review agreement. Would you be in agreement with that?
No. Why would we do that?
Well, we weren't sure if the work was minor enough where it wouldn't merit one.
Yeah, well, if they weren't crossing a city street, then yes, but,
So no waiver.
a waiver. And it also interfaces with the other project that's going to be going on in Durgan Lane, so.
So it needs to be bonded with the site review agreement. Yep.
Anyone from the public like to speak? If you're on Zoom, raise your hand.
How many chargers are they putting in? 6.
All right, we'll close that portion. Any further comments?
I think there's 2 pages.
I missed that.
Questions or comments?
Why does my site plan come up here?
So you state that the primary power to the equipment will be installed by the utility company.
That's true.
Okay.
We already have, right?
Yeah.
So
Just
this
that
is it?
negates our comments on crossing Durgan then?
No, it does not.
All right,
Because
it would
they'll be
still hold
installing the
Eversource to
conduit for them.
Okay.
Street, Woodbury Ave. That's a different one. Eversource will put the wires through the conduit.
Gotcha.
It's the wrong one. Yeah,
All right, so our comments there stand.
Who will be installing the conduit?
Go again, there we go.
Who will put the conduit?
Whoever wants to put the transformer in installs the conduit. Eversource does not put in conduit.
They just slide the wire through the
They'll
conduit.
slide the wire through once they confirm that it meets all their requirements. We'll need them to have the license before they can excavate
Before
the
they can
city
do
street.
that. Yep. And they got to excavate, they can't go under?
I got it.
Jack under?
There's a potential for directional boring if needed. I heard a comment that was just recently paved. So, I mean, if that's, a stipulation. I believe
We're going to
we can do that.
require that it's concrete encased.
Yep, I did see that note too in the TAC review. The one question I have on the TAC review comments for the planning board meeting, are those items that need to be revised prior to that and resubmitted to you guys? Or is it waiting in tandem for their review or comments?
Probably rather have it revised before planning board, right?
Yeah.
If you can get the revision done before the planning board submission, which is next month? They're not on this month, right? Or are they on this
Right,
month?
did you-
I think we're on the docket for the 18th or the 19th this month. I'll make sure we get that in early next week. And my permitting specialist, Emily Roseberry, who can work with your HJ contact, will get that over to you guys.
Okay. All right, any additional comments? I have conditions, license for pole and conduit.
Yeah, license from Eversource for the pole
Right.
and the city for the conduit.
The applicant, yeah, for the,
If there's an Eversource easement, or excuse me, transformer in their property, they need an easement,
it's not,
It's a private
it's their
transfer.
private transfer.
Yeah, private transformer.
private transformer.
So recommend approval with those two stipulations? Any other stipulations?
The comments we've had,
Comments that we already wrote down. Other than that, no.
You want the stipulations?
Yes.
yes, oh yeah.
Make sure I got it.
95% compaction within the right-of-way, concrete encasement.
And then did I hear accurately, you guys are going to need the item that was going to be waived?
And we'll request a,
Yes, we'll need that to be, I mean, you'll have to do that.
a bond and a site review agreement.
Okay, yeah.
Will be required,
The comment said we're going to be requesting a waiver for those, but we'll get those done.
Yeah.
And that's post-approval, so.
Understood, thank you.
You made there's a motion by Mr. Britz. Is there a second?
Second?
Any other comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Approved. Thank you.
Thank you, guys, I really appreciate your time. Have a good day.
Okay. Alice.
All right, we're adjourned.